بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. This morning بإذن ta'ala we'll just take a brief hadith from the Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he says حدثنا إسماعيل قال أخبرنا أيوب عن نافع عن ابن عمر قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الذي يفوته العصر كأنما وتر أهله وماله. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he narrates with his isnad that goes back to Ibn Umar that the Messenger of Allah والسلام, said the following words: الذي تفوته, he says, the one who misses Salat al-Asr كأنما وتر أهله وماله, as if he's lost all of his family and all of his wealth. The one who misses Asr, as if he misses his family and his wealth. So this hadith, it teaches us the severe danger of missing Salat al-Asr. And it also shows us the tremendous virtue and the importance of Salat al-Asr. If the Messenger of Allah warns us from missing out on it, he's also indirectly encouraging us and inciting us to preserve it. If he warns us from losing out on Asr, he's also telling us to make sure that we perform Salat al-Asr. So the hadith which shows a dispraise or condemns something, it is also encouraging and inciting its opposite. And it's a tremendous Sharia principle. Is that when the Prophet ﷺ forbids something, he commands us with the opposite. When the Prophet ﷺ commands us with something, he's forbidding us from the opposite. He's forbidding us from the opposite. So this hadith, it shows us the severe danger of missing al-Asr, number one. And also shows us the tremendous virtue of those who make Salat al-Asr. And this is one of the ways in which a believer can live in this world surrounded by insanity and madness and craziness and not become insane and mad and crazy. It's because when you see something wrong or negative, you know that there's the opposite. The second side of the coin is that the people are doing this, falling into this, but alhamdulillah, I'm not. And alhamdulillah, there are others who aren't. There is still light. There's still hope. There's still a chance. There's still those who are conscious of Allah Azza wa Jal, who are conscious of death, or are conscious of the akhirah, who are trying to be pious and trying to be righteous. There are people who are knowledgeable among a widespread pool of ignorance. So always remaining positive. Naam. And a person, instead of asking, well, why did Allah make all of these people for the hellfire and just a few small people for paradise? I know all of these people going to Jahannam and only these people going to Jannah. Why is Islam so strange, so weak, so meek, so timid, so on and so forth? And not always looking at the negativity, but reflecting on the what? The positivity. And thanking Allah. Alhamdulillah, I'm a Muslim. That's what's important. Alhamdulillah, I'm a Muslim. And being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that blessing. And not always focusing on things or people which are necessarily blessed by Allah Azza wa Jal. Alright? And a million examples of this. A million what? Examples of this. Things should increase you in yaqeen when you see some type of negativity based off of what you've been told in the Quran and in the authentic Sunnah. This hadith also goes to show us the permissibility of making similitudes and parables. The permissibility of making similitudes and parables. The permissibility of making an example to make something else clear. He who misses Asr, as if such and such and such and such. And why was Salat al-Asr to be compared to something worldly, such as wealth and children? Such as what? Wealth and children. And the Prophet ﷺ tells us of the rewards of going out in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the morning, going on in the early morning, afternoon, in the cause of Allah is better than the worldly life and everything which is upon the worldly life. And at the place, the place in which one puts, if one was to place a salt, a whip for a horse, in paradise is better than the entire dunya. So what comparison could there possibly be with Asr and one's wealth and one's children? Asr, which is something which gets you closer to Allah, closer to thereafter. Hayya ala salah, hayya al falah. Come to success. And oftentimes a person's family push them away from Allah. Oftentimes, not all of the times. But oftentimes your wife or your husband or your children push you from Allah. And your wealth preoccupies you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It makes you forget about the masjid, forget about Asr. Alright? Whether you delay it, whether you miss it, I'll make it up when I come home after work. At the end of the day, I'll make Dhuhr, Asr, and Maghrib together. And Isha together. So why would the Prophet ﷺ even mention these in the same sentence? He did this to show that it is permissible, and sometimes recommended, and sometimes maybe obligatory for people to get the point of making a comparison. Is that if you do this, as if you did that. And if you lose out on this, then as if you what? Left out on that. And who would want to lose all of their wealth and all of their family? And it's the next point from the hadith, which shows us that it is not necessarily haram for a person to have worldly possessions, and for a person to have worldly connections and relations, and for a person to have natural love of things and for people. Who would want their family to die? Your young, soft children, your spouse, your mother, your father, your grandfather. Who would want that? Of course, that's something that's natural. That's something which is what? It's natural. And having basic things and being happy that Allah has given you them, Allah blesses you with certain things which are fine. That's what? That's natural. And no one wants to what? Lose out on them. And oftentimes, many people, may Allah protect us all, they may blame certain responsibilities on the deen. And they may accuse or say that I don't like this or I don't want this. Not because they really don't want it, but because they're too unsuccessful, or they're too irresponsible, or they have major flaws and errors, and they conveniently blame it on their religion. And they say zuhud. But when they're giving something to the dunya, it's what? It may not be no real zuhud. Or they themselves, not even given, they may go out and take it, and it becomes haram, etc., etc. So there's nothing wrong with a person loving his family and a person having wealth, and the son of Adam being naturally made to love wealth. لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. Allah says that man loves wealth, he loves khair, he loves good by nature. Alright? Some of the ulama of Islam, they have said, in light of this hadith, and in light of other hadiths regarding Salat al-Asr, that those who do not pray are not Muslim. Those who do not offer the 5 daily prayers are no longer Muslims. They are not Muslims. If you do not make the daily prayers on time every day, you're not a Muslim. If a person is in a coma, if a person is asleep, that's a different story. But one who just lives as a secular or nominal Muslim or Jum'ah Muslim, and he doesn't pray Dhuhr or Fajr or Asr in the masjid or not, he doesn't pray at all. He doesn't make it up when he oversleeps. If he's sick, he just doesn't pray. Some of them, they say that they are not Muslim. And that's because the Prophet ﷺ says that a person is losing the most prized of his worldly possessions. I.e., as if a person has nothing. You've lost all of your money. You're totally bankrupt. All of your family is gone. Your wife and children have all been slain and murdered. That person will look at that as a total calamity and loss. A person may go insane if he came home and his house was burnt to the ground. Right? In his house was his savings. Let's say he had money in the house. All of his family, his grandmother was asleep. Everyone died. Everybody's gone. Everything's gone. You have nothing. No insurance, nothing. He may lose his mind. He may lose his mind. And he would look at himself without a doubt as being someone who has nothing. So some of them, they say, many of the Salaf al-Salih, not just some of them, okay, some of the ulama say, ijma' the Sahaba, Allahu alam, al-muhim, they say that those who do not pray are not Muslims, because the one who has nothing is a kafir. The one who has nothing as a total loss is a kafir. And that's a very dangerous and deep discussion about the people who say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and they don't pray. They don't make salah. What stops them from praying on a daily basis? Alright? Also, some of the ulama of Islam, they say that this hadith doesn't necessarily prove that they are not Muslims, but the Messenger of Allah والسلام, in this hadith and in other hadiths, he's trying to inhibit the people from leaving off Asr and push them far away from it. As it states in the hadith of Buraidah, he who leaves off Asr faqad habita amaluh. His deeds are null. He who leaves off Asr has no deeds. He who leaves off Asr has what? Has no deeds. Some of them say this hadith, like this one here, is showing the Prophet is pushing the people away from leaving off Asr. He's pushing them away. Don't come near to missing out on Salat al-Asr. Because if you do, as if you such and such. If you do, as if all your deeds such and such. And others, they say no. It means that a person is not a Muslim. Al-Muhim, one thing that we can all agree on is the danger of not praying. And one thing we can all agree on is the virtue of praying. The what? The virtue of praying. And that the prayer is going to be the vertebrae of the Muslim's spiritual body. That's going to be the scale of one's Islam. How much prayer you make, how much prayer you don't make. How consistently you make it, how consistently you don't make it. Alright? Al-Muhim, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us to make Salat al-Asr and to get its rewards. And there are many other authentic hadith of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu regarding the virtue of Salat al-Asr. And some of those hadiths state that Salat al-Asr is Salat al-Wusta, is the best prayer of the day. Allah Ta'ala surely knows best. Let me take a few, inshallah. Let's take a few. تفضل. تفضل شيخ.
Last night actually I was listening to a debate between two scholars. One is on the Sunnah path, and the other person they call themselves Quraniyun. Now my question is, someone who says they are only Quraniyun, are they Muslims or they're not?
Questions regarding a debate that was heard regarding two scholars. One was on the Sunni path, and another was supposed to be Quraniyun. Are the Quraniyun Muslims or not? In brief, those who call themselves Quraniyun or they're called Quraniyun are not Muslim. They are not Muslim. And not only are they not Muslim, but they don't deserve that term Quraniyun. Alright? And I think that I would consider myself, and we should all consider ourselves Quraniyun. Everyone is supposed to be a Qurani. We're all supposed to be people of the Quran. Is that term legitimate? Did the Prophet use that term? Al-Muhim, the concept of being attributed to the Quran. We should all be. And it's a mistake that many people they make. They say, Fulan, he's a jihadi. Or this person's a jihadi. We should all be jihadis. Every Muslim should be about jihad fi sabilillah on one level or another, depending on the time and the place and the ability, and depending on the legislation of jihad. There's no Muslim, as we mentioned before, who's away from the warrior spirit. As we have explained, what the ulama of Islam say is that jihad min haythul jins, as a general concept, is obligatory upon every single Muslim, whether it's physical, whether it's financial, whether it's spiritual, whatever the level or the concept is. You understand this? A woman, everyone has a jihad they have to make, and everyone has to have a fighting spirit in this dunya. Everyone understand this? Some people fight jihad physically because of the time or the situation or place that they're in. Some people only fight jihad financially because of the time and the place and the situation that they're in. Some people may fight it spiritually, physically. وَهَكَذَا ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Everyone understand this? So giving the people the concept or the ascription of Quraniyun is disrespect to the Quran. Okay? Just like they say a luti. Someone who's a homosexual, they call him a luti. Some of the ulama mention this term and others don't. I mean, it's difficult to call someone a luti and attribute them to Lut alayhi salam. It's difficult. You see what I'm saying to you? So ascription is a means of nobility or lack of nobility. Ascribing something or ascribing yourself to something noble is supposed to be what? Nobility. So then they don't deserve to be called Quraniyun. They're apostates. And perhaps the proper term, because many people they use that term. You find it in many books. Munkir Sunnah. Rejectors of the Sunnah. Hadith rejectors. Al-Muhim, they're not Muslim for so many reasons. The first reason is that they make the Quran a laughing stock. Waliyadu billah. They make the Quran a joke. And we all know the ruling of mocking Allah and mocking His ayat and mocking His messenger. The Quran al-Kareem is full of verses that discuss the Prophet Muhammad, the messenger, the Prophet, to be obeyed, to be followed, to be respected, for his example to be taken, and for us to go back to what he says and legislates at the time of differing. At the time of differing. So if there's no hadith and there's no sunnah, like we just mentioned in Samash Taqwa on Friday, unfortunately, this is sad. In 2018, to actually have this debate and Masjid Taqwa. Am I making this up, Taqawi? This is, and that issue, if that comes out, then only Allah knows what's really being harbored in someone's mind and heart of these doubts. If the brother had enough courage, alhamdulillah, to speak out and ask, let alone debate over it. We were sitting there for a good 10, 15 minutes, right? Only Allah knows how much of this is in his brain, saturating and sizzling for such a long time of doubts about hadith. And what? 2019 now, I'm sorry. And a masjid like that around brothers. It's sad. So we said to him, from a logical standpoint, okay, so there's no hadiths and no sunnah. So what does Allah say when he says obey the messenger? What does that mean to you? He said, the easy, simple answer that he was trained to respond to was, that means take the Quran. So Allah is basically saying, take the Quran and take the Quran. Obey Allah, which is obviously the rulings of the Quran, and also obey Allah. Does that make any sense? That makes no sense, right? Allah says, Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. Obey Allah and obey Allah. If Muhammad brought the Quran, why do we have to obey him? Why does Allah say, وَإِن تُطِيعُهُ? If you obey him, you'll be guided. What's the point? The messenger, we said, he brings the package, the parcel to your doorstep, and he does what? He leaves. You don't, hey, come here, man. I didn't order this. I ordered it in a different size. You don't beat up the mailman or the postman. He delivers the package. And if you have any beef or quarrel, you take it up with who? With the company. You sent me the wrong thing. It's broken. I wanted a different color. The messenger has no place with the actual what? Message. So the Quran doesn't just say take the Quran. It doesn't just say take the message. And this is the special thing of the Prophet ﷺ. It says obey him, follow him. That there's a good example. And the list goes on. Rather, there are verses in the Quran in which Allah's obedience is not mentioned, but just the messenger's obedience is mentioned. So what does that mean from a common sense standpoint, if there's nothing but the Quran? So you're basically saying that Allah is talking nonsense and foolishness. Follow someone whose sunnah and hadith are all lies. Go back to someone when you differ, وَيُسَلِّمُ تَسْلِيمًا, and they submit in full submission. يُسَلِّمُ تَسْلِيمًا. They cannot believe until they make you the judge in everything that comes up among them. And then they don't find any haraj, any difficulty in their hearts. مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ, from that which you have decided. Why will Muhammad decide anything if the Quran is there? Oh, well, it means at that time, Muhammad came with the, so why is it still in the Quran today, in 2019? What's the purpose of Muhammad deciding between goat and sheep and gold and silver on a battlefield today? Why do we still recite it? Everyone understand this? So they have disrespected Allah. And they've told Allah that he's not making any sense. And follow something, obey something, go back to something that doesn't exist, that doesn't make any sense, that's all fabricated, that's all made up, and the Quran is more than enough. They themselves do not believe in the Quran correctly and properly. So anyone who rejects the hadith as a whole is a kafir. If you reject a specific hadith, I don't think this is authentic. One thing. I don't think this hadith is fabricated. It's one thing. Everyone understand this? This book of hadith is not really strong. We don't have to follow that. Or these hadiths are doubtful. They're preoccupied from the clear message of the Quran. There's one thing. But to say they're all made up and it's only the Quran, this person is not a Muslim. They've rejected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's in brief. And it's only one of the arguments, logical arguments, that are levied against these people, which they cannot answer. Which they can what? They cannot answer unless they bring some twisted, warped, total, stupid interpretation. And they expose themselves. Because people who call themselves Quranis, one of the strongest principles that they use is that they claim to be intellectuals. Aql, reasoning, human reasoning. And following the sunnah is a means of stupidity, and it's just boring and dull. It isn't mentally stimulating. This is the rationale. This is the reason why they reject the hadiths from the get-go. These hadiths don't make sense. If a fly lands in your drink with one wing, put the fly in and take it out. Flies carry bacteria, they carry disease, they carry illness, they land on manure. How can you put it in a drink? And hadith is in Bukhari. So this one hadith about a fly inside of Bukhari proves that the entire side of Bukhari is what? False. All of it is a lie. because of one hadith that doesn't fall into their mindset, their intellect. All right, no problem. Labas. Maybe the fly is disgusting and dirty. Maybe Sahih Bukhari is all lies. Over 1,000 years of Muslims have all accepted it, from the east to the west, north to the south. But you're right, it's made up. No problem. But now you give me the intellectual interpretation of the Quran. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the messenger gives you, take it, and whatever he forbids you from, abstain. You know what they say? They say this verse is pertaining to the faith, the spoils, or not even spoils, the war booty. There's a difference between spoil and booty, even though sometimes they're synonymous. But oftentimes in English, the booty of war is the wealth that's taken before fighting. The wealth that comes from the people surrendering and submitting. Everyone understand this? Al-Fay. And Al-Anfal, Al-Maghanim, Ghanima, is the actual spoils. That which is taken by force after fighting. So they say that this ayah here in the Quran al-Kareem is saying, whatever war booty the messenger gives you, take it. And whatever he says that you can't have of war booty or spoils, don't take it. Wattaqullah, and fear Allah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severe in punishment. They said that this verse does not prove that there is hadith and sunnah to be followed. But it only proves is that the Prophet's job was to pass out the spoils or the booty and forbid them from taking things that they weren't supposed to take, and that's it. This is an intellectual, groundbreaking interpretation of the Quran. So the first question for anyone with common sense is going to be, well, if it was pertaining to a specific battle, one battle, Surah Al-Hashr, one battle, over 1,000 years ago, 1,400 years ago and more, why do we have to recite it today in 2019? And if we still have to recite it, aren't we supposed to get something from every verse in the Quran? What does that mean? Is there any battle between the Prophet today and the Mushriks and the Jews in New York City? But we still recite it in the Quran. What does that mean intellectually? What's the answer? Secondly, if that's what it means, we should take the spoils from the messenger and avoid the spoils that he doesn't give us. Doesn't it make sense to take his guidance, how he believed, his character, his prayer? What makes more sense, to take a piece of gold and silver, a captive from war, or guidance leading to Jannah? The Quran says take the material possessions that Muhammad gives you, but don't take the spiritual guidance that Muhammad gives you. That's intellectual. I mean, seriously. That is your mind, that's your scholastics right here. That don't even make any sense. Let alone Allah says, fear Allah. What does the fear of Allah have to do with taking spoils or war booty? Because Allah is severe in punishment if you don't follow Muhammad and obey Muhammad. That's common basic sense, is what? And doesn't the Quran clearly explain the rulings of booty and spoils of war? يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنْفَالِ. What's the purpose of Muhammad saying anything and avoiding what Muhammad forbids them from if the Quran has clearly what? Legislated it. So there's one verse, according to their tafsir, it makes no sense. And it proves that they are the furthest people from true intellect. They're the what? The furthest people. Everyone understand this? And the last backbreaking thing that I'll mention is that they always try to promote being diplomatic and being liberal and being progressive and accepting of everyone, right? Not to criticize people, because the Sunnah criticizes people. The Sunnah is misogynic. The Sunnah is anti-Semitic. The Sunnah speaks on racial slurs. The Sunnah. Okay, no problem. So let's say that the Quran is the only source of guidance. No problem. And this is what this verse means. And all those other verses, all of them, this is what they mean. No problem. But why can't you accept me for taking the traditional, orthodox, ancient interpretation? Can I not be accepted into your circle? He says that it's only the Quran, and I say that it's Quran and Hadith, and we're all buddies and friends and Muslims together. Will you accept me? Can I be on your panel? Can I be with you? Would they accept me, told him? Would they allow my interpretation to be mentioned in their circles and gatherings and academic journals? So they themselves are not implementing true what? And liberal. They're not liberal. They're not accepting of all. Everyone understand this? You see the rainbow outside of the restaurant. LGBTQ. All walks of life are accepted in this coffee shop. If you're a lesbian, if you're homosexual, if you're this, everyone is accepted. Right or wrong? You can't discriminate against anyone, anyone's religion. You walk into these places as a Muslim, you have a thobe on, you have a beard, I doubt that they'll look at you funny. They won't judge you, they'll serve you, they'll smile in your face because you're like them. You're not going with the traditional way. But you go into other restaurants in which there's no rainbow or other coffee shops, someone may look at you funny. Or someone may ask you, how can I help you? Or basically, what are you doing here? And they themselves are sticking to their principles. But if you walk into a place in which you had a rainbow and they refuse to serve you because you're a Muslim, or because you're a woman, or because you're a man, because you have a beard, then they're now being what? Hypocritical to their standards of acceptance of what? Of all. So they'll accept every interpretation of the Quran except for the interpretation of 1400 years. Don't you find that intellectually disturbing? You understand this? So, and the list goes on, of bashing them with their own rationale of what? Aql. And exalting intellect and thinking that they're smart and they have big brains. If you actually sit down and look at their argument, you find it's the dumbest argument that makes no sense. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Khalas, inshallah. Get to move your car.